What's going on, guys? It's time to talk about the new debut album from British indie rock band The Sherlocks. Now, this band has been unsigned for a long time. They've done about 1,000 shows before this record came out, so they're really quite a live, punchy band, and this record's kind of like a culmination of everything they've been doing live and all their sort of local releases. But finally, they've signed to BMG, and they've released this debut album over here. And now they're kind of re-releasing all the old music. It's kind of a different issue that I've kind of heard many of these songs before that's going to be on this record. But it's just kind of interesting that they've chosen to re-release them and re-record them. Make of that what you will. But there's around, I think, if you count them all in all, you could hear about 6 of the songs on this album before it was released. I think there's 12 songs on the album. So kind of half the album was available before release. But we'll talk about some of the things around why the new versions could be better, why they could be worse. I mean, I could do a separate video on what the morality of sort of re-releasing music. But let's just get into an objective review of this album. Now, the album kicks off with Will You Be There, which is it's like an indie rock anthem. Really, where this band reaches their forte is when they sort of release sing-along anthems, really. And I feel like this is one of the better ones that comes out of the record. It reminds me a lot of Are You In Love With The Notion off the third Cortinas album. A lot of this album reminds me of the third Cortinas album, actually. And to be fair, the Sherlocks draw a lot of comparisons to the Cortinas. And I tend to agree. The sort of instrumentation, the vocal style, and the sort of the northern accent does tend to reminisce a lot of what the Cortinas have done. But at the end of the day, with a genre like indie rock, it kind of doesn't tend to matter as long as you can write sort of a decent tune. We've definitely seen live that these boys can do that. And I think Will You Be There is one of the better ones to come out of this record. The anthemic chorus really highlights kind of everything that's good about this album in one track. It captures the all-around essence of what the Sherlocks are and what they're here for. I mean, I'd say this whole album, the subject matter of this whole album is sort of kind of finding a significant other, whether that be geographically, not having one, or wondering where they are. And Will You Be There really plays into that theme. I'll probably talk about why that theme might get a little bit tired towards the back end of this album and later in the review, because I think it kind of does. But I think Will You Be There, it's acceptable, you know. It gets the album going. Now, the Sherlocks are really maxed out on the sort of bangers towards the start of this album. You've got Immediately Following It, Live For The Moment, the title track. Now, since this song's been sort of remastered, I kind of initially I wasn't sure whether it was worth it. If you go back and listen to the old ones, I don't know how available they are. They haven't changed that much, but I kind of like the way the backing vocals have been put into this track. Originally, it was the kind of difference is the originals were a bit more stripped back, but with this one, the backing vocals have kind of add a lot of depth on the chorus. I like it kind of feels a bit more relaxed, a bit less kind of not energetic, but a bit less kind of rowdy than the original did, and I like that a lot. It's still a well-written indie track. Kind of sums up really why the Sherlocks are here, living for the moment, sort of partying, stuff like that. That's kind of what this album's about. But then they do continue to follow this trend for the first 4 tracks, and maybe these could be spread out a bit more in the track listing, but it's followed by Escapade. I really like this is one of the moments on the album where the instrumentation kind of plays really well into the kind of vibe and the vocal performance on the album. I love the way in the verses the lead guitar sort of follows the vocal pattern. It gives it kind of a groovy touch, which I didn't think was there in the original. So I really like this. This kind of does remind me of some kind of second album Cortinas, third album Cortinas, again. But I kind of like the dancier, darker tone of this track. I like the way the hi-hat and the drums in the chorus and on the verses kind of keep that kind of bouncy rhythm going, which it kind of feels a bit of a breath of fresh air from kind of the arena ready choruses which kind of appear elsewhere on the album. Now, whilst we're talking about indie bangers, I feel like there are a few moments on this album where they don't quite hit the spot. If you look at an album sort of, I feel like, you may be able to debate me on this, I feel like when Catfish and the Bottlemen released their first album, that was kind of proof that you could not reinvent indie as a genre, but produce a piece of music that was fairly traditionalist, but would actually get people. And I love creativity in my music, but I still loved that album. And it was, to be fair, it was banger after banger, and it proved that you could do it. But I feel like a few of the tracks in this album kind of fall short. I think the song Blue is probably one of the examples of this. It was kind of one of the singles they released about a week before the album came out, and it kind of falls a bit flat on the chorus. The topic focus is kind of a bit messy. I don't really know what, like, it can't be as well pinpointed as other songs on this album might be. And I don't find myself humming along to this one. There's songs in this album you can replay again and again, but I just don't know if this is one of those tracks. I feel like the song Blue kind of raises more problems about the album than it answers, really. When this album falls short on its kind of hooks, we start to pay attention to maybe the lyrics or something like that. Typically, you know, when music is less hook heavy, it's conceptual, it's focused. But this album is kind of lyrically riddled with cliches and just idioms and kind of things with no depth. You see, in this song, we have like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and stuff to describe someone who just doesn't have a job, and it's predictable, and obviously live the moment in itself is a cliche. I mean, to be honest, this is gonna bring the album down a lot, because if you really listen, every other line, every other lyric tends to be some sort of idiom, some sort of cliche that kind of it's like a culmination of every band he's ever listened to, but he's taken the most cliche lines and put them into one. Hell, there's even a track on here, the last track, Candlelight, which straight up takes one of the lyrics from Stereophonics' latest album, the most popular song off that. Straight up rips a lyric from that. And the song in itself is just a complete, I'd say almost, the chorus is almost a carbon copy of Welcome to the Rave off the third Cortinas album. Again, the third Cortinas album come into this quite a lot. And really by that point, it's kind of old. I was expecting this because it follows the song Motions, which I found to be kind of, it's probably one of the only fresh moments on this album. The kind of soft acoustic guitar, I think it's an acoustic, and the kind of like Beach Boys-esque like pop vibe that this one has. While it's maybe taken a bit of a commercial turn, I find it to be quite refreshing in comparison to songs like Nobody Knows, which I just find to be dull and bland. So when I started up Candlelight, I assumed they were going to end on some kind of, I don't know, something similar to Motions, I hoped. But we just got some kind of formulaic anthem instead, which really I'd never want to listen to again. We've already talked about like sort of the first 4 songs on this album. Really, I'd say consistent. I don't have any problem with a person sort of throwing these on a party playlist. This is what these songs are made for, really. They're not made to sit down and listen to. This album, I feel, falls weak as a record in terms of its sort of focus as a record. It feels more like the way they released it kind of says a lot about the nature of the record itself. The kind of song after song way that they released it over a series of months kind of means that most of the songs get old by this point, and it's kind of more a collection of singles than an album. So really where I'd say I most enjoy this album, or at least enjoy it a little bit, the songs which kind of balance some sort of focus, like less so like Live for the Moment, which, while it's a good song, you know, you spend 1 minute looking at the lyrics and you know, you feel like it was cobbled together in 1 minute by some sort of cliche writer. But songs like, I think The Last Night and Heart of Gold towards the back end of this album really sort of revive it. Both tracks have some kind of I can follow what both tracks are all talking about. Well, obviously they're both shallow themes. Heart of Gold kind of about some kind of failing relationship, and you kind of get a sense, it's not contradictory, you kind of get a sense throughout the song of what lead singer Kieran Crook's relationship is with this girl. And Last Night at the same time asks the question, can you remember? Whilst it's simple, the hooks are really catchy on these ones. At the same time, I know what he's on about, and these are the songs I find myself most wanting to play again. But unfortunately, the spots in which this album really draws from its influences too much and plays out songs that really, no song on this album needs to be longer than 4 minutes. It really doesn't. But you've got Nobody Knows, and it ends, and I honestly couldn't tell you one line from this song, having heard it a number of times. And it ends with this. Oh my god, listen to this. And if you've heard anything off Oasis's third album, it's painful. I like to skip the last minute of this song. And Turn the Clock as well kind of a similar slow cut. I just find to be, it's about what, time going by, because they had a song on one of their EPs actually from 2013 called Time's Ticking By. Much better song actually. How this one made it onto here, I don't know. I would say I like the harmonica on this track towards the middle. I think that's quite a nice change. The places where harmonica and strings come in are kind of refreshing, but really I'm clutching at straws at this point. I'd say about half of this album kind of drags on longer than it needs to. So yeah, in conclusion, after my first listening, I felt like I'd heard everything this album had to offer. I really felt like if I went looking, there wouldn't be anything else to look for, and took it sort of second, third, fourth listens, really not missing anything. You know, definitely listen to this album if you need a few indie tunes. Like it's decent. I'm not going to deny that I have a personal like for quite a few of these tracks, I suppose. But really, if we're reviewing the record as an item, I wouldn't recommend it to sit down and listen to. So I'm going to award this album. Oh wait, I actually don't know what I'm going to give it yet. 55%. So I'm going to give this album about 55%, 55 out of 100 for this new album from the Sherlocks. Thanks for watching, people. I know this is another indie review. Some reason all three of the reviews I've done on this channel have been indie. I do like a lot of genres, but it just happens to be when I felt like doing a review, they've ended up like this. So just let me know what you think in the comments below. Obviously, you feel completely different about this album. You value the tunes more, you value them less. Just let me know in the comments. We'll have a peaceful discussion. And thanks for watching, and peace out.